Hi friends, I'd like to talk to you about denying the science. If we haven't had the chance to connect, my name's Rick Leib. I'm running for the 11th Congressional District. And I think it's often that we see people making arguments or trying to advance an argument by including science. That is to say, maybe an argument would include a scientific fact or a statistic, or maybe a quote from a scientist. And these arguments are made in such a way and in such a manner that if you were to disagree with the conclusion of the argument, you would be written off and dismissed as somebody who is illogical or irrational because you are denying the science. And I think we do this because in our culture we've sort of elevated science to this idol status. That is to say, if you include the science or if you claim that the science is on your side, you are necessarily making an argument true, almost making science this kind of standard for truth. But I don't think it's a standard for truth. And I don't think it necessarily makes an argument true. And I think this for a couple of reasons, but let me share three of them with you. Number one, I don't think science makes an argument necessarily true because there's lots that we know apart from science. For example, history. Science doesn't tell us anything about history. We know that Shakespeare was born in 1564. We know Abraham Lincoln was the 16th president of the United States. Both those statements are true, and yet they're not scientific ones. They're just true claims. Science doesn't tell us anything about beauty. If I said that the Grand Canyon was breathtaking, or is breathtaking in the evening, that's not a scientific claim. Even if you disagreed, you said, well, I don't know if it's breathtaking. All right, but nobody would say you're denying the science because it's not a scientific conversation. Science doesn't tell us anything about ethics. We know it's wrong to steal from your neighbor, but that's a moral conversation. That's not a scientific one. So there's lots that we know that science does not tell us. Number two, science is often wrong. So science cannot be a standard for truth when in it itself, science is often wrong. Science is open to new information. That's what makes science so exciting. The discoveries that come with science. That's where we get medical breakthroughs from. Scientists don't want to be wrong. Actually, nobody wants to be wrong. But they're open to new information. For years, the science told us that the earth was flat. But then what happened? We got some new information. We made some new observations. And then we drew some new conclusions. Now we know that the earth is not flat. But nobody would say you're denying the science. We're actually open. We want that new information. We want to learn. But because science is often wrong, it can't be a standard for truth. So that's the second reason. Let me give a third one. Number three. Science is often inconsistently held. What do I mean by that? There are people who will say to me, Rick, you're not as passionate about climate control as you should be. You are denying the science, or you don't wear a mask when you're out in public. That's unhealthy. You're doing that only because you deny the science. But this is usually the same category of individual who is okay with abortion. And we know that abortion is the intentional taking of an innocent human life. But people are okay with abortion often because they deny that prior to birth that the baby is an actual life. But what does the science tell us? The science tells us that that baby is growing, developing, can feel pain. So they're denying the science. Well, you might deny the science, but then I think you would have to agree. If you can hold science sometimes and deny it other times, science can't be a standard for truth. What we want then in our arguments are good, rational, reasonable arguments that adhere to the rules of logic. And while it might include citing science, science does not necessarily make an argument true. I hope this is helpful for you. I hope it helps you make good arguments. I hope it helps you make good arguments better arguments. But more importantly, I hope it helps you spot flawed arguments. Thank you for watching. My name is Rick Leib for the 11th Congressional District.